Greg, look at the light in here, I said, spinning in the center of our downsized kitchen. The granite countertops gleamed, and the floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over a dense, quiet woods. It was perfect. No more echoing hallways of a 5-bedroom house. Just us, a bottle of wine, and a fresh start in a city where nobody knew our names. For the first month, it was bliss. We felt like newlyweds again, unburdened by the clutter of our old lives. The forgetfulness started around the 3rd week. I walked into the kitchen for a midnight glass of water and slammed my forehead into an upper cabinet door. I cursed, rubbing the knot forming on my brow. Could have sworn I'd closed that after dinner. Greg, honey, please try to remember to close the cabinets, I mentioned the next morning. He looked at me, closed halfway to his mouth. I didn't leave any cabinets open, Bianca. I thought that was you. We laughed it off. Age, we figured. Then came the smell of scorching fabric one day. I walked into the kitchen to find the front left burner of the stove glowing cherry red. An oven mitt was inches away and had started to curl in smoke. Greg was in the garage, and I had been in the garden. Neither of us had been in the kitchen for hours. After several days of misplaced keys and forgotten items left on, the constant bafflement over who had left what open finally tipped the atmosphere from charming, claustrophobic. The air felt thick, and every sound seemed amplified. Shadows lingered longer in corners, making us uneasy. The house felt like it was holding its breath. We started checking the locks twice, then 3 times. We began announcing when we closed a drawer. Pathetic attempt to be sure we had closed, locked, and turned off all the things we seemed to be constantly forgetting. "Closing the silverware drawer," I'd yell. "Heard," Greg would call back. It didn't matter. We'd wake up to find every single drawer in the kitchen pulled out to its limit, like wooden tongues sticking out at us. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, we had gone out for a quiet lunch to escape all the tension of the house. When we returned and opened the door, we were greeted with the sight of absolute chaos. "What the hell?" I muttered, looking around. The living room was torn apart. Our new 65-inch TV sat on the stand. Its screen was cracked, with a spiderweb pattern right in the center. My heart hammered against my ribs as I looked around more. Every book from the shelves was shredded and its remains were scattered on the floor. Our furniture looked like an animal had ripped through it. We made our way into the kitchen. It wasn't any better than the living room. All of our dishes, including pieces we'd kept for 30 years from our wedding, lay in a million shards across the hardwood. The dining chairs were tipped over, and even the table was overturned. I was filled with dread while walking to our bedroom. I sighed as I stood in the doorway looking at the mess. The mattress had been flipped. Our clothes were dragged from the closet and piled in the center of the room. "Check the jewelry," Greg exclaimed. My jewelry was still there, along with Greg's grandfather's gold watch. They were lying near the flip vanity. The laptops were there as well, all those strewn across the room. Police officer, a young man named Moore, walked through the wreckage with a look of pure confusion. He poked at a smashed ceramic vase with his boot. "No signs of forced entry, Mr. Hayes," he said, half shrugging. "The alarm didn't trip. The windows are all locked from the inside." "Well, someone did this." Greg sounded irritated. "Look at the beds. It would take at least 2 grown men to flip those mattresses." Officer Moore sighed, looking at his notepad. "I can file the report for vandalism and unlawful entry, but honestly, without a suspect or missing property, there's not much we can do. Maybe get some house cameras." He left with a polite nod, leaving us in a house that felt less like a home and more like a cage. As the cruiser pulled away, I heard a soft click from the kitchen. I walked in. The silverware drawer was open, just an inch. Cameras arrived the next day. We spent the afternoon mounting them in the corners of the ceilings and the entry points of the house. I felt nervous at the thought of what we might see on them. "We'll see what's really going on," Greg told me confidently. I noticed his hands shake slightly as he synced the feed to our phones. We spent that evening huddled together on the one sofa that hadn't been slashed to bits. We kept staring at our phone screens, waiting for something to happen. The house was a grid of grainy night vision green. After some time, it became too hard to keep my eyes open. The next morning, the house was eerily still. No broken glass, no overturned furniture, just a suffocating cold that seemed to radiate from the walls. I picked up my phone, heart thumping as I started to review the recordings. At 11:42 p.m., a kitchen chair slid a few inches from the table. There was no sound, no shadow. It just moved as if an invisible person was leaving the table. Then, at 1:15 a.m., the bedroom camera started flickering. When it stopped, the closet door was standing wide open. "Greg," I whispered, clutching his arm and shaking him awake. "Look at the hallway." He groggily stared at the phone with me. On the screen, the hallway was empty. But as we watched, a series of indentions appeared on the carpet. Deep, heavy imprints, like someone weighing 300 pounds was walking towards our door. 1 step, 2. Then the camera feed cut to static. I found a clip from 3 a.m. Camera in the living room showed us. We were asleep on the sofa, huddled under a shared blanket. Then, the motion sensor triggered. First, I saw nothing. Then, I noticed the distortion. The air in the center of the room began to ripple, like heat rising off the asphalt. It drifted towards the TV, the same cracked one that we hadn't replaced yet. There, a thin, pale shape began to manifest. It wasn't a person. It was too long, its limbs jointed in ways that defied anatomy. Nothing broke or was thrown around this time. Instead, it leaned over us. It stretched out a finger that looked like a sharpened shard of bone and traced the line of my throat, hovering just a millimeter above my skin. "We're leaving," I said, my voice trembling. "Now, don't pack. Just get in the car." "Bianca, look!" Greg pointed at the screen. In the video, the creature turned away from us and walked towards the wall. It didn't go through the wall. It reached out and pulled back a section of the wallpaper as if it were a curtain. Behind the wallpaper was a dark, narrow cavity we hadn't known existed. The thing crawled inside and with terrifying precision smoothed the wallpaper back down behind it. I looked at the wall in our real living room. The pattern was perfect, seemingly untouched. Greg and I stood up in unison and walked over to the spot we'd seen on the video. I grabbed the heavy brass fire poker and pressed my ear against the floral paper. First, there was nothing. Then, a wet, rhythmic sound. It sounded like a fingernail carving something into the wood behind the plaster. I swung the poker, the heavy metal tearing through the expensive paper and the slats beneath. Dust puffed into my face. I ripped away a chunk of the wall, revealing the hollow space. It wasn't a crawl space. It was a tall, coffin-thin gap between the studs. Nailed to the interior of the studs were dozens of small, silver items. Our missing keys, a lost family ring from 3 states ago, our son's first tooth that had gone missing from a scrapbook in 1998. And there, scratched into the wood and fresh, raw gashes, was a single sentence. "It's finally small enough for all 3 of us." A cold draft hit my ankles. I looked down. The vent at my feet was vibrating. Something was breathing just on the other side of the grate. I didn't investigate the vent further. I didn't need to. The realization that this thing, this presence, had been following us since our old life, waiting for us to downsize until there was nothing left to hide, lent a cold, sharp clarity to my movements. "Car, now," I croaked, grabbing Greg's hand. We didn't grab coats. We didn't grab keys to the house. Greg had the car fob in his pocket, and that was all that mattered. We burst through the front door into the chilly evening air. He hit the unlock button, the chirp of the SUV sounding like a heavenly choir in the stillness of the cul-de-sac. We scrambled inside, and I couldn't hit the locks fast enough. My hands were shaking so violently I missed the button the first few times. Greg, go. Just go. I was sounding hysterical, my eyes fixed on the house. Porch light flickered. Through the large, beautiful windows we had loved so much, I saw the silhouettes. Every light in the house began to snap on, one by one, starting from the back and rushing towards the front like a wave. I heard the engine roar to life. The car slammed into reverse, and as I looked into the rearview camera screen, I froze. The screen wasn't showing the driveway. There was something blocking the view. In the grainy, infrared glow of the dashboard, I saw a long, pale figure coming closer to the vehicle. "It's here," I whispered, the words dying in my throat. "Don't look back," Greg screamed, his voice a jagged edge of terror. "Bianca, don't you dare look back." I didn't. He floored the accelerator. The tires screeched against the pavement as we backed out blindly, hitting the curb and swinging the nose of the car towards the exit of the neighborhood. Greg was driving like a madman, eyes locked forward. We hit the highway. I saw the speedometer climbing to 80, then 90. The silence in the car was absolute, save for the hum of the road and the ragged sound of our breathing. "We'll go to a hotel," Greg exclaimed. "Bright one. With a crowd. We'll call the police from there." I didn't respond. I just kept staring at the dashboard. The SUV's seatbelt warning light began to chime. I looked over. Greg was buckled in. The light for the middle row was flashing. Then the back row. One by one, the sensors triggered as if an invisible passenger were settling in for a long trip. Then came the voice. It didn't come from a throat. It came from the speakers of the car's sound system.
I love the new place. It's so much cozier.
I felt the car jerk to the side. Power locks were going crazy before settling on locking us in. The windows, controlled by a ghost in the machine, rolled up slowly, sealing us in the cabin. As the car turned onto a dark wooded shoulder of the interstate, I realized we had simplified our lives until there was nothing left but us, our memories, and this thing that had finally caught up. The engine died. The headlights flickered out. In the total darkness of the car, I felt a cold, thin finger trace the back of my neck.
Welcome home.
The voice whispered.